Welcome back to the double leg. I am one half of your host, Hey Jive Picks. The other half of the host, the parlay. Welcome in. How are we doing?
Good, man. I was just talking to you that we hit a ton of bets this past weekend. Wasn't the biggest fight night card, but a hell of a lot of fun if you're a sports bettor, and you were on the picks that we did.
Yeah, we had 11 fights. One of them got scrapped, Chase Sherman and Josh Parisian, and I believe it was 9 in total. So we both had a good night, cashed a good amount of plus money tickets, and then the big ones we were invested in came through. So looking forward to continuing that. And so far, I found a good amount of spots on UFC 281, which we'll be breaking down in this one, the big main event between Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira. And then you've got the other title match between Weili and Carlos Esparza, and the big lightweight bout between Michael Chandler and Dustin Poirier, and a whole lot of other good fights. I think from top to bottom, you could put this card up against any other card this year, and it would compete for sure.
Definitely, and there's not a ton of star power like the Sean O'Malley's like there was on UFC 280 or Charles Oliveira, but there's just some solid fighters from top to bottom. I mean, look at the fight that's kicking off the early prelims. Carlos Ulberg and Nikolai are going to battle. That's going to be a huge fight, in my opinion, at least. Maybe it's just because I'm a diehard fan, but those two guys bring the action every time they're in the octagon. And to kick off the card, two guys like this, the UFC. That was perfect matchmaking to open this big UFC 281 card.
Yep, and you got the last guy to have fought John Jones, Dominic Reyes, on the prelims.
So crazy.
This fight card is stacked, and the feature prelim, Renato Moicano and Brad Riddell, that's going to be a banger as well. Well, I would say there's a good amount of spots on this card that I like, and starting with the first spot that I like on this card with the main event, Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira, the boogeyman, in my opinion. This dude is just extremely scary. You could tell by his shot right there. But 6-1 in his MMA career. His only loss was a long time ago. And the only man to have knocked out Israel Adesanya, that was back in Glory Kickboxing. Adesanya never lost in his middleweight career. So this is going to be quite the fight here. Who knows what we're going to get, because Izzy's past fights have been, kind of snooze fests, but I don't think Alex Pereira is going to allow that to happen in this one. I'm going to let you go first and hear what you got to say.
Yeah, so I've gone back and forth on this one for a while now, and I can't quite figure out what type of fight it's going to be, because obviously we've seen Israel Adesanya lately kind of point fight, stays out of danger, does enough, usually wins 49-46, 50-45 across the board. But Alex Pereira is in there looking for the kill every time he steps into the octagon. Super fun to watch. I mean, look what he did to Sean Strickland. Nobody really goes in there and does that to Sean Strickland. Strickland's a tough dude, and Pereira made light work of him. I mean, that left hand was devastating. And those are the type of shots that Alex Pereira looks for. But I go back to the Yoel Romero fight, Anderson Silva fight with Izzy. Izzy goes in there with guys who are great strikers, and, a guy like Anderson Silva who's on his level, or at least was at one point in his career. And Izzy does everything in his power to avoid those big shots and avoid those big exchanges. And he's done really, really good so far of doing that. So I can see Izzy going in there, and we see the same type of fight here with Pereira. Izzy avoids all exchanges and all big left hands of Pereira, and kind of picks his shot from the outside. And we see a close fight, but a not exciting fight. Or I could see Izzy going in there with something to prove, because he's lost twice to this guy. Everybody online and in the MMA community is talking about how Alex Pereira has already knocked out Izzy. So I could see Izzy going in there and wanting to get the revenge in more than just the judge's decision. He wants to do it by knockout. So I'm going back and forth on what kind of fight we're actually going to get. But Alex Pereira has found that left hand in damn near every single one of his mixed martial arts fights, and a hell of a lot of kickboxing matches. So, if I'm going to lean one way right now, I have to go Israel Adesanya just because he's never been beaten at middleweight. If I would have seen something in previous fights that makes me think, okay, Alex Pereira is going to go in there and has a legitimate chance to just put Izzy away, then I'd be all over Alex Pereira. But I haven't seen anything yet that tells me that somebody's going to go in there and beat Israel Adesanya easily. But I do like the plus. If you are on Alex Pereira, I like the odds for him. Plus 170. That's what was floating around earlier. I thought this was going to be closer to a pick'em fight. So a little surprised to see Alex Pereira such a big underdog. But right now, I got to lean Izzy to get the win.
Yeah, the line is seeming to move Israel Adesanya's way as we
surprising.
Yeah, sort of surprising, but also like Alex Pereira has only been in the UFC for 3 fights. So if you're, the average UFC fan and you don't necessarily cover it like we do as in depth as we do, you might not really know who he is or what he's about, and just kind of blindly bet Israel Adesanya because he's never lost in the middleweight division. But I mean, as hard as it is to pick against Israel Adesanya, if there's anyone to do it with, it's gotta be Alex Pereira. I mean, Israel Adesanya has never fought a guy the stature of Alex Pereira in the UFC. Both guys are 6'4", I believe 79-inch reach for Pereira, 80-inch reach for Adesanya. So matches up in size. The biggest guy I think Izzy's fought was Jan Blachowicz, and he was still taller than him. Obviously not weight wise, but still taller than him. Still had the reach on him, and Jan Blachowicz outstruck him actually, which was at least in volume surprising considering Adesanya's one of the greatest strikers we've seen in the UFC. Also, Jared Cannonier, 5'10", Jared Cannonier landed 90 significant strikes on him. So I wouldn't say he's super hittable. Like, he doesn't leave himself open to those big shots, but he's hittable volume wise, at least. And Alex Pereira hits hard, so you never know if he's going to be able to avoid that big one. And 5 rounds with Alex Pereira, I don't like the odds of him not getting clipped at least once. Another thing to point out is Alex Pereira is relatively, I mean, I don't want to say like green. He's been kickboxing since 2013. So, I mean, less than 10 years. But when he first fought Israel Adesanya, he'd only had 7 professional fights, and he was 4-3. So 3 of his losses, 2 in kickboxing, 1 in mixed martial arts in 2015. When he first fought Israel Adesanya, Izzy had well over 20 fights. Alex Pereira only had 7. Beat him by decision in that one. And then Adesanya, they face up again in 2017. Pereira knocks him out, and then Izzy goes to MMA. So he's 2-0 against him, and it'd be hard for me to imagine that he doesn't beat him again, just based off of he's probably gotten better at striking, because he was fairly green in when he fought him the first time. Izzy was basically the veteran in that situation. Pereira, it is an MMA bout, so Izzy could mix in some wrestling, but like you said, I think he wants to get it back more than he just wants to win. He kind of wants to get it back and prove everyone wrong. I know he's always talked up his fights as of recently, like he's going to go out there and start swinging for the fences, and he never does. But I don't think he goes out there wanting to, grapple with him for as long as it takes him just to get the win. I think he's going to want to show that he's a better striker on the feet. So that leads me to the ultimate decision that I'm going to take Alex Pereira, and mainly for the plus money. I think that's just the move here. It's like, I don't want to say dog or pass because it's Izzy, but it's also like at the plus money, you're just getting a better value for, a fight that's probably going to be standing for, it could be 5 rounds. I'm going to take Pereira in that one. More finishing ability. And I got in on Alex Pereira probably a week ago or so when he was down at like plus 155 because he had moved down a little bit. So I'm like, oh no, like I got to get in here because I was kind of leaning Alex Pereira and the line started to go down. So I took him at like plus 155 and now he's like plus 180 on bet openly. And I just added a little bit to that. So that's what I'm going with. I wouldn't be surprised if Izzy goes out there and just avoids everything and gets the win. But for what I want to do with my money and what I think is the best way to go, I'm taking Alex Pereira.
Yeah, and I mean I can't really blame you at all, just because, especially now that the line has moved. I'm looking at like even on DraftKings right now, plus 180 for Alex Pereira. I mean, a guy that has performed the way he has in his last however many fights, 3 fights. I mean, that's hard to ignore. A guy that's that big for the division, hits that hard, and he's already beaten Izzy twice, once by knockout. Plus 180 is a ton of value. Um, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I probably won't sprinkle a little bit on Pereira for those odds exactly there. But another bet that I really like that I'm looking is under 4.5 rounds plus 105. And I know Izzy could go out there and make it boring, but I keep thinking back to when Izzy decides to go and fight, he can put guys out. I mean, look what he did to Robert Whitaker. People forget how devastating of a knockout that was. Paulo Costa, who went in there and he just clipped him with a shot and was able to put him away pretty early on in the fight. And Paulo Costa just went in there and took Luke Rockhold's best shots without going out. Yeah. So Izzy has this sneaky power, and when he wants to fight and he wants to engage in those firefights, he's shown that he is extremely powerful and dangerous. And then we know that Alex Pereira is going to go in there and throw bombs as well. So if Alex Pereira can make Israel Adesanya go in there and fight, I like the under 4.5 rounds at plus 105. I think someone goes to sleep. Those guys hit too hard. They're too good of strikers. For someone to at least not get hurt, and there'd be a chance of that under 4.5 cashing. But like you were talking about earlier, you know, Izzy, can be hittable in his past fights. I think the problem is that he's hittable, but he doesn't get hit clean. His movements are so good that, you know, he rolls with a lot of shots. It's hard to hit Izzy clean. Obviously, Alex Pereira has found a way to hit him clean in the past. So yeah, I think people are going to get hurt in this fight. There's going to be a lot of significant strikes. If Izzy decides to go in there and fight. And I'm banking on him doing that because I do really want to see a good Israel Adesanya fight, because it's been a while since we've seen a real flashy, exciting fight from him.
I agree. I'm very excited. I hope I'm not let down because all bets aside, I just want to see a good fight.
Yeah, for sure.
At the end of the day, I'm a MMA fan. I just want to see a good fight. So
I mean, it's been a while. I feel like it's been a while since we've seen a good main event. We've had injuries in main events. You know, a good 5-round war. It's been a long time, it feels like. And I'm sure there's one somewhat recently that I'm not thinking of, but it feels that way.
Yep. Moving on to the co-main event, Carlos Esparza and Zhang Weili. Esparza gaining the belt in the snoozer of the year, maybe snoozer of the decade, as far as title fights go, and getting the belt there at 30. Well, she was 34, but now 35. Zhang Weili en route to retaining that belt once again. Lost it to Rose and then lost again to Rose and then knocked out Joanna and made her retire. So I think Zhang Weili is very, very talented. And I think she probably gets this one done with ease if she can fight to her strengths. Much better on the feet. I think she's very, very capable on the ground. I think she can definitely wrestle with Carla Esparza. But obviously she's going to have a big mismatch on the feet. So powerful. The kicks, the punches, everything, man. She's just one of the strongest pound for pound female fighters on the roster. And I think she gets it done pretty easily. The odds would indicate that. I know Tapology has this wrong for some reason. It's backwards. Carlos Esparza is not the favorite. She is the underdog. So just flip these betting odds. While Zhang Weili is the favorite pretty heavily, I think she's probably one of the better picks this week. A great parlay piece. I do think she probably gets it done within the distance as well. Most likely by knockout, probably clips her at some point or ground and pound. Carla Esparza's like run to the title just isn't really that impressive.
Yeah.
Split decision or majority decision over Alexa Grasso, split decision over Michelle Waterson, split decision over Marina Rodriguez, and then the one that really kind of catapulted her was the TKO win over Yan Xiaonan, where Yan Xiaonan had zero ground game at that point in her career. So she exploited that, and then the snoozer against Rose. So I'm big on Zhang Weili in this one. I think she could be hold the title for a good amount of time as well.
Yeah, I agree. I'm all over Weili in this fight. I just do not see a world where Carla Esparza goes in there and beats her. It's not going to look like the Rose fight. Weili is not going to sit back and, read her opponent and take her time and just jab. Weili's coming in there to finish the job and get that belt back. If you look at Weili's record, she's got the 2 losses to Rose Namajunas, and then she hasn't lost in MMA since her very first fight. I don't even know how long ago. It's been a long, long time. But Zhang Weili is an absolute killer. If you look at this whole division, Marina Rodriguez, okay, she just lost, good fighter. Yao Xiaonan, good fighter. Michelle Waterson, getting older, but it's been a good fighter. And then you go Zhang Weili, absolute killer. I mean, she is the absolute killer of this division. She lost those 2 to Rose Namajunas, like I said, but I just see her getting her belt back, and I could see her being the champion for a while now. I don't see anybody outside of Rose Namajunas coming in and challenging for it and making it a good fight. I just think Zhang Weili is the best fighter in the division. I think she'll show that on Saturday. I actually like her to finish Carla Esparza. I don't think Carla is going to be able to go and implement her wrestling by any means. I think Weili is super, super powerful and strong. She'll be able to keep it on the feet if she wants. And then, like you said, it's a huge mismatch with the striking. She's a savage on the feet. I look for her to prove that. I think she gets a knockout here. I'm not going to say the round because, women's MMA, it's hard to gauge how quick any of these girls can put the other one away. But I'm definitely going to ride Zhang Weili by knockout in this fight Saturday.
Yeah, I hate betting women's MMA chalk, but this is a high-level fight. Mm-hmm. I would feel confident putting my money in Zhang Weili. She's so good, man. She's, as you said, so aggressive. Like, she's not going to go out there and just hand over her belt like Rose did. She's going to go out there and go after it at all times. So I got trust in her. By knockout right now is plus 135. That's what I'm seeing. That's not too bad considering on the site I'm on, she's minus 400. So
yeah,
that's not bad. Getting that down a little bit.
Yep.
She does have like 7 submissions on her record though. So that's kind of like sketches me out a little bit, but I don't know. Maybe inside the distance is minus 125.
Yeah.
So I guess it improves you a little bit there.
Submission plus 900. So it's kind of interesting. I think the reason I'm not going to take her by submission is, because 1, I think she's going to knock her out. But 2, I think Carla in her wrestling, if this thing goes to the ground, it's going to be a lot of Carla on top and Weili working back up to her feet. I don't think Weili on the ground is going to be actively looking for submissions or to keep this thing on the ground. I think Weili knows she wants this thing on the feet. And for that reason, I would stay away from the submission. But plus 900 is pretty juicy. It's, a lot of money to be made there. But for me, I don't know. I feel it. I feel that knockout coming for Zhang Weili.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That's it's probably the play there. Moving on. Probably, I think this might be the fight of the night. Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler. Dustin Poirier coming off the loss in the title fight to Charles Oliveira. Michael Chandler coming off one of the nastiest KOs we have seen in a while. The front face kick to Tony Ferguson took some more years off of his life, and unfortunately, Poirier sitting at about a 2-1 favorite. It seems like he keeps moving. The line keeps moving in his direction as well. Both fighters very seasoned in the sport. I'm definitely leaning Dustin Poirier in this one. I've been somewhat vocal about how I don't think. Well, I think Michael Chandler is very, very fun to watch, but his fight style is not going to get him many wins. You know, it'll get him wins over a Dan Hooker, a Tony Ferguson, a guy who can't really shut the lights out on him. But
Yeah.
guys like Justin Gaethje, guys like Dustin Poirier, guys like Charles Oliveira that have the power to withstand, power to take one and then power to give one. And I don't think Michael Chandler has the power to take one anymore. I saw it on TikTok somewhere. Someone called him a glass cannon. I think that's probably the easiest or the best analogy for him.
Yeah.
Super powerful, but gets dropped in every fight. You know, if you're getting dropped by Tony Ferguson, it's not a good look. Dustin Poirier's got a hell of a chin on him. He's never lost back-to-back fights. I think he gets a win here. I think he gets a finish. And at minus 200, it's not a terrible price. But I got it back at like minus 175. Probably, I want to say, what is that? The 9th, August, back in August. So, I feel good about Dustin Poirier, and I think he gets a finish. And I think he's one of the best plays on the card for the price.
Yeah, and Michael Chandler. Here's my take on Michael Chandler. I don't want to say he's sold out, but it seems like he's more in it for the entertainment. Try to get the fans, a lot of views, and he's in it for the money now more than he is the legacy and the title run inside the UFC, because he's been the champion in Bellator. He's done all of that, but now coming into the UFC, it's time to make some money. And what makes you more money than going in there and giving the fans a war every single time you go in there, regardless of the outcome, regardless of if you're going to take a knockout or not, as long as you're getting paid and you're getting the views. I think that's what Michael Chandler's striving for at this point in his career. And for that reason, man, I'm all over Dustin Poirier in this fight. I think Chandler's dangerous. He's obviously powerful. He's knocked people out. But Dustin Poirier's been in some absolute wars as well. Dan Hooker and Max Holloway, those two fights come to mind where it was 5 rounds of absolute brutality, and Dustin Poirier, ended up coming out on top. And if Michael Chandler does make it this war, I think Dustin Poirier is just the more calculated fighter in those type of situations. Fight IQ is a little bit better, and like I said, Chandler is in it for the entertainment. Dustin Poirier is in it to win every single fight he's in there. For that reason, man, I don't know. I like Michael Chandler. I just don't see him getting past Dustin Poirier on Saturday.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about being in it for the money. I actually saw a video of him on camera saying like his number one goal is to give his family financial freedom, and he, kind of not outwardly saying like I'm in it for the money, but like subtly saying like I just want to make money. I want to get big fights to make money for my family.
Yeah.
And he's definitely doing that. Like, by the way he's fighting, he just wants the crowd to go crazy, and doesn't seem like he really cares if he wins or loses, which is fine by me. I will make my bets accordingly. So,
yeah,
I got plays on Dustin Poirier for sure. I think he's another good parlay piece as well. Frankie Edgar, the retirement fight, and Chris Gutierrez. Frankie Edgar, hopefully he makes it out alive in this one. Coming off a couple brutal KOs. Corey Sandhagen flying knee, and then the Cheeto Vera front kick that rearranged his face a little bit. 41 years old, legend in the sport. Chris Gutierrez, 4-0 and no contest. So he's on a streak a little bit. He's going to sit in at the favorite 2-1 there. Some plus money on Frankie Edgar. Are you touching it?
Okay, so here's my thing on fighters like Frankie Edgar who are going into the retirement fights. They're obviously 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I forget who said it. It might have been McGregor or one of these guys said, when you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, nothing good happens. We've seen it with Cowboy Cerrone. I just don't trust a guy who knows he's about to retire and he knows this is his last fight. How hard did he train for it, knowing this is the last time he's going to do this? Is he ready to be done? Did he have a bad training camp because of that? I just don't like betting on older fighters in general, and especially one that's getting ready to retire. Gutierrez looked really, really good against the He got the knockout win there. I just watched that fight earlier today, and his striking looked really crisp. I think if he can go in there and keep this thing on the feet, he's longer, he's rangier, he hits pretty hard. I see him putting away Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar used to never get knocked out, but after that Brian Ortega uppercut, it seems like he's getting knocked out, fairly often. Chris Gutierrez to win by knockout, plus 180. That's going to be a prop that I'm sprinkling on. I do like Gutierrez in a parlay piece as well. I'm actually fairly confident that he beats Frankie Edgar. And it all just comes down to that factor of Edgar just being 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and not quite in it for the love of this game anymore.
Yeah, I am with you there. I'm never going to bet on an older fighter coming off 2 bad KO losses and has verbally announced that he's going to retire. Chris Gutierrez is the play. Probably inside the distance. I would maybe expect Frankie to kind of throw it all out there and leave himself open to some shots.
Yeah.
So I think Gutierrez by KO is definitely a live play, especially at plus money. I got it at plus 225, so I like that a lot. But other than that, Chris Gutierrez is the play. Frankie, hate to see you go, man, but can't be backing you after what you've done in the past. So
yeah.
Move on to Dan Hooker and Claudio Puelles.
Puelles? Yeah, it's a tough one to say, kind of. I've heard people announce it complete different ways, so
yeah.
We'll go with Claudio.
Claudio, Prince of Peru. 5 straight wins, or 5-0 in his last 5. Dan Hooker, 1-4. Coming off a couple tough losses. KO loss to Arnold Allen in London, submission by Islam Makhachev. His only win in the past 5, Nazareth Haqparast. Training out of City Kickboxing, so that whole group, we got 4 of them on this card, I believe. So they're going to be coming to fight. Poirier, this is a bit of a jump in competition for him. He looks promising, coming off 2 knee bars, submissions in his last 2, Clay Guida and Chris Gritzmacher. Not exactly the greatest competition there, but either way, he got it done. 26 years young for him, so he's got 6 years of youth on Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's got some miles on him, though. Yeah. As far as the chin goes, Hooker's sitting at a favorite right now. Way is about plus 135. What are you thinking on this one?
I think this is a fight where you can take the underdog at these odds because Dan Hooker, like you said, 1-4 in his last 5 fights. And in those losses, he hasn't really even shown me anything that would make me confident to put a bet on him, even against a guy like Claudio, who hasn't fought many top-level guys and who's kind of climbing the ranks right now. But Puelles is dangerous. I mean, like you said, the 2 knee bars, he's always fishing for a submission, whether it be the arm or the legs, and he's really, really good at wrapping up those long legs of his opponents. Hooker, though, is a warrior. I mean, I talked about it earlier in the Dustin Poirier fight. That was a 5-round war where I think both guys' stock went up, just showing how tough they are. But again, 1-4 in your last 5 fights. How confident, do you think Dan Hooker even is walking into the cage anymore after losing that many fights? And especially in the fashion that he's lost some of them.
Yeah.
And, Claudio knows that too. He knows that Dan Hooker's been beaten. He's beatable. He's seen the blueprint in the last 4 fights out of the 5. I don't know. I like Dan Hooker as a fighter. I think he can be fun to watch, but putting a bet on him at this stage in his career just seems a little risky to me. Yeah. And a guy like Claudio has the ability to finish the show by submission. I think it's worth the risk to take the underdog here. I do like Claudio at plus 125 right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think it's kind of dog or pass in this situation. I'd have troubles betting Dan Hooker as a favorite. Claudio Puelles definitely going to have the grappling advantage on the feet. I'm not sure how well he does. Dan Hooker's still, pretty solid on the feet.
Yeah.
Great kickboxer. But if this fight hits the mat, not like Dan Hooker is completely incapable of grappling, but he's just going to be outmatched, I think.
Yeah.
Poirier by sub is at plus 400. I think that's definitely live.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would probably just lean towards that prop for me instead of taking him at plus 135, just because I don't. If it goes to decision, I'm going to be a little, hesitant of what's going to
Right.
happen. So buy subs probably the way I'm going to go. I'll probably sprinkle a little bit on that. Not going to get too invested in this one, just because who knows how good Puelles is. Big step up in competition on a big stage as well. Who knows what he's going to look like? He's only 26. Most of his fights have been at the apex, so this is a big step up for him. I think he could get it done. It's dog or pass,
Yeah.
but that's about it for that one.
Yeah, I like what you said about Dan Hooker is good on the feet. So and Puelles being only 26, and this will be the first time that Puelles is in there with a guy that's this high level as Dan Hooker. So yeah, I think if Puelles does win, it is by submission. So I do like that prop. If you're going to play anything, I think sprinkle on that prop. Forget the money line if you're on Claudio, because if he does win, I feel it's by submission. I think Dan Hooker could take him to a decision and win. So yeah, I like that play that you mentioned there. Plus 400 Puelles submission.
Yeah, I mean Hooker fought Arnold Allen, Islam Makhachev, Nazareth, Dustin Poirier. Like he's gonna look at Claudio Puelles and be like, this guy's gonna stand with me. I don't think he's going to, but
Right.
if Puelles can get it to the ground, his takedowns aren't that great, but if he can just find a way to get it to the ground, like that's his best path to victory. And I'll sprinkle a little bit on there just for the fact that he might do it. So
yeah. Fun fact here before we move on: if you look on Tapology, Dan Hooker has dropped all the way to the number 93 featherweight in the whole entire world, as Claudio is number 26 right now. Not that those type of rankings mean anything,
yeah,
but it just shows you the MMA community, media, and fans. You take 4 out of your 5 losses, you're going to drop drastically in the ranks. I mean, he just fought Islam Makhachev not too long ago,
yeah,
and now he's dropped all the way to the number 93rd ranked featherweight in the world.
1 year ago to be exact. So
yeah, yep.
Wow, how fast life changes for you. Renato Moicano and Brad Riddell, the featured prelim here. Moicano coming off the loss to RDA, which he got kind of brutalized in that one. Took it on short notice. So that was a catchweight at 160, and I think he just kind of took it to take it. I don't think he really gave himself much of a chance in that one. Took a lot of damage though. For Brad Riddell, 2 straight losses to Fiziev and Jalen Turner. Can't be too hung up on that one or both of those, because those guys are top 10 talents within the lightweight division. Brad Riddell, super crisp striker, trained out of City Kickboxing and Tiger Muay Thai. So he's got the striking in his package. But he has struggled a little bit with the ground game in his career. Moicano, more of the grappler, I would say.
Yep.
Still solid on the feet, but I think he's going to have a bit of an advantage on the ground if he can get it there. He is the bigger fighter, though, 5'11". Brad Riddell, 5'7", and he's going to have 4 feet in height and then a couple inches in reach. So this one's going to be fun. I think Moicano is game for a sub. He's sitting at the slight favorite. This one's basically a pick 'em, but Riddell is going to put it on him on the feet, I think. So I would lean. I don't really have a lean as far as the money line goes, but I would probably say I would take a look at Moicano by sub. He's gotten a good amount of subs within his past 5 fights. 3, I believe. His sub right now is at plus 400. Don't hate that at all.
Yeah.
But what are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, it's interesting. Brad Riddell, super good kickboxer and powerful. He's kind of that shorter, compact fighter who can throw really hard, and he can put guys out. And then Moicano, dangerous, pretty much everywhere, but that grappling really shines at times. And if you look at each guy's record, Moicano's downfall has been guys like Rafael Fiziev, who hits hard. The Korean Zombie, who knocked him out or got the TKO over him. And then Rafael Dos Anjos, who kind of did the same thing, like you said, kind of brutalized him. And then Brad Riddell's downfall, his last fight against Jalen Turner got caught in that guillotine. He's been submitted before, and that's what Moicano is good at. So it's kind of, they kind of cancel each other out in that aspect. And Brad Riddell, with his training partners at City Kickboxing, he's got all the right guys around him. I think the Jalen Turner fight, he just kind of got caught there. I think Brad Riddell is a lot better than he showed in that fight, and I think he's dangerous. I don't necessarily like the height disadvantage or the reach disadvantage, but I do like the fact that Brad Riddell can shut the lights off at any time, and Moicano has had problems dealing with those kind of powerful, Rafael Fiziev types that are shorter, compact, and they can really put it on you. And if Brad Riddell is going to stay the underdog, I'm tempted to just take him out right here. I think this is a close fight. I think it's a good fight. And if it stays on the feet, I think Riddell can put it on him.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Brad Riddell is, I don't want to say like a poor man's Rafael Fiziev, but like he's just like a slight step down from Rafael Fiziev.
Yeah.
As far as his style goes, very similar. Brad Riddell by KO is plus 225. The over-under is at 2.5 right now. Under is minus 120. And I just based on the conversation we've just had, it seems like it's like Brad Riddell by KO or Moicano by sub.
Yep.
I don't know if this one goes the distance, but I got PTSD because I had the under in the Moicano RDA fight, and the last 2 or 3 rounds, Moicano's eye is pretty much shut, and I'm just like, they have to call it. He can't see.
Yeah.
And I have the under 4.5, and RDA just stopped fighting him because he felt bad. So it's like I got PTSD from that because Moicano just held on for dear life in the last few rounds, and the fight with the distance, and my bet lost. So I want to take the under 2.5 here again. I think that's probably a good move considering the price. Moicano's only been to decision once in his past 4 fights.
Mm-hmm.
Brad Riddell, 3 in his past 5, but he just seems a lot more powerful as of recent. I don't know if I can say that. Like, I don't have anything to back that up, but the dude's back is like massive. Like he's got a lot of power.
He does hold power.
Moicano's chin is not the best. I mean, he's been knocked out 3 times. So yeah, the under 2.5 is looking pretty good for me. I'm just gonna have to get over that PTSD from the RDA fight, but we'll see if I get there.
Yep.
Moving on to Dominic Reyes and Ryan Spann. Reyes, 3 losses in a row, a couple of KOs to all current or former champions. And then Ryan Spann, win and a loss, and then coming off the win to Iwan Cutelaba, sitting at a pretty heavy favorite here for Dominic Reyes. What are you thinking on this one? Because this one's intriguing.
I'm super surprised, I guess, that Dominic Reyes is almost, I guess, over now, a 2-1 favorite.
Yeah.
Reyes, I think with a lot of those, that line comes from him almost beating John Jones. And I think that's why everybody thinks he's going to win this fight, is because, Dominic Reyes almost beat John Jones. A lot of people thought he should have got that decision. But since fighting John Jones, the brutal knockout by Yuri Prohaska, I mean, one of the nastiest knockouts I've seen in the last couple of years. And then he lost to Jan as well by TKO. So is his chin there anymore? I mean, he's coming off of 2 knockouts, and that last one was horrendous. I mean, that elbow landed perfectly, knocked him clean out, fell on his face. But if you look at Ryan Spann, he's kind of had an up and down career inside the UFC. He is dangerous. Coming off that guillotine over Jan Cutelaba. And then before that, the loss to Anthony Smith by rear naked choke, and then Misha Serkinov he beat by TKO. So he's dangerous by submission or by knockout. It's kind of hard to judge, though. I mean, I don't necessarily think Ryan Spann is a great fighter. I thought Dominic Reyes looked great against John Jones, but since he hasn't looked like a great fighter. So it's kind of tough to lean one way or the other. But if you're going to give me plus 175 on a guy like Ryan Spann who can finish the fight by submission or can finish this fight by knockout, and with the the questionable chin of Dominic Reyes at this point, I'm going to take the underdog Ryan Spann at plus 175 just for those factors. I think this line should be a lot closer to even, just given each guy's past couple of fights. But if you're going to give me plus 175 on a big boy who hits hard and can choke you out, I'm going to take it. Give me Ryan Spann on the money line.
Yeah, I don't hate that either. Ryan Spann's a big boy, 6'5", 81.5-inch reach.
Yeah.
He's got 4.5 inches in reach on Dominic Reyes. So, as you said, can get it done on the ground and the feet. Dude's powerful. He's got pretty good skills. Dominic Reyes hasn't fought in a year and a half. Even before he took that elbow, like, he was taking a lot of big shots.
Yeah.
We know how powerful Yuri Prohaska is, and he took his best shots and then some. So, yeah, that one's a tough one to come back from. And then you're a more than a 2-1 favorite on your comeback fight. I know he's been training with a lot of really high talent, Alex Pereira being one of them. So who knows what their sparring sessions are like. Maybe he took a few off the chin from Alex Pereira, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I will definitely not be backing Dominic Reyes at this price. I would maybe, if it keeps moving his way and Ryan Spann gets close to like plus 200, I think you got to sprinkle on that at least.
Mm-hmm.
And then him KO right now is plus 450. That's not bad at all. The over-under is set at 1.5. The over being minus 120. So they're expecting this one to end pretty quickly. And I'm not sure that I disagree. I think that's pretty accurate. So
yeah, and Ryan Spann in this fight, honestly, I think whoever was the underdog, if you would say, okay, Dominic Reyes is plus 175, I think I would be forced to put money on that too.
Yeah,
I think this is just such a this line is so off. I think it should be closer to pick 'em, and for that reason, whichever guy would be at plus 175, I would take.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard to judge who's going to win, though, if I'm being honest. I think both guys, have reasons why they can win, and both guys have reasons to why they can lose as well. So, but whoever's the underdog in this fight, I'm going to take, and especially if you're going to get closer to 2-1, like you said.
Yeah, it's dog or pass for me. And speaking of big dogs here, the biggest dog on the card, Molly Meatball McCann plus
interesting
310. Yeah, it is interesting. Who knows where this line will be at when it's all said and done, considering all the promos that Barstool is going to be running for her. They might cash out on that one. So
yeah,
3 straight wins for her. Jiyeon Kim, Luana Carolina, Hannah Goldie, both of those by spinning elbow. And then Erin Blanchfield, the big favorite on this one, super talented. JJ wins over JJ Aldrich, Miranda Maverick, who we just saw last week, who looked really good. And then a couple in Invicta and one in the UFC, but she's only 23 years old. So she's 9 years younger than Molly Meatball McCann. These odds are interesting, but part of me thinks that they're valid, just based on how Molly has looked her entire career. She hasn't been this big star her entire career. She's kind of just blown up because she's involved with Patty Pimblett, and she is a big personality. So she's got that going for her, and then had a couple great performances that put her on the map a little bit. And I don't want to say that I don't like her as a dog here, because it's women's MMA and it's plus over 300. So I think that's decent value, but Erin Blanchfield, I think, is the truth, but she is 23. So it's like, I don't know if I want to get too invested at a minus 400 favorite at 23 years old. I do think she has a wrestling advantage here, but Molly's probably going to be a little bit better on the feet, but I just don't know that she's going to be able to keep it there. I think Erin Blanchfield, I'm going to take Blanchfield for my pick. Maybe be looking for Molly on a little sprinkle, but probably not. And who knows where this line's going to be, by Saturday with all the promotions that are going on for Molly. So going Blanchfield for the pick.
Yeah, and recency bias is making me want to take Molly McCann so bad, just because she's a ton of fun to watch, especially when she's fighting on the same cards as Patty, and she's got the Barstool endorsement. They like to hype her up as well, and her finishes, those spinning elbows have been, pretty damn impressive. So it's hard not to take Molly McCann at over plus 300. But if you look at Aaron's last few fights, JJ Aldrich standing guillotine, and Miranda Maverick. We just saw Miranda Maverick win last Saturday. Pretty good fighter. And then she beat Brogan Walker in Invicta. Brogan Walker was just on the Ultimate Fighter and won, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I know she's in the finale. Victoria Leonardo, who's I believe was on the Ultimate Fighter that season as well. So she hasn't really fought this high level in the UFC yet. And I don't necessarily know if Molly McCann skill-wise is high level. I know Molly McCann, obviously her name holds a lot of weight in the women's division because, she's kind of blossomed into this star in the women's MMA. But I don't know, plus 320 right now? It's kind of hard to not think about it, I guess.
Right.
Especially with the knockouts she gets and the spinning elbows, but
she could pull some magic out, like
right.
Good. It's definitely good.
Yep, and Aaron is good, but you touched on it too, and exactly why I'm a little hesitant to play her, especially when there's not a ton of value here. Yeah. She is 23 years old, and she's going into a pay-per-view card against Molly McCann, who's been under the bright lights time and time again. The last couple of fights, when she's been on the same card as Patty in London, those two are the talk of the card. So she understands the pressure. She's been in this situation before, whereas Aaron really hasn't, and she's only 23. I imagine being that young and stepping onto a pay-per-view card against this, Molly, who's become a global superstar, is going to have some pressure attached to it. It's going to kind of drain you a little bit as you're stepping into that cage. That's the one thing I worry about with taking a girl like Aaron at minus 390. So, yeah, I don't know, man. It's tough to tell. I think Molly obviously has to keep this thing on the feet if she wants to win. And I think she will have to win by knockout because Aaron's going to be relentless trying to get this thing to the ground. I think she's going to win the control time. She's going to win the grappling. If Molly wins, it's got to be on the feet, and it's got to be by knockout, in my opinion, because Aaron will steal rounds with her takedowns and her control time and, looking for subs. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of one of those fights where I really want to bet on because there's going to be, meatball Molly. Can she do it again? But at the same time, these odds are so jacked. It's hard to pick a side and be confident in it.
Yeah. As we know, this card is going to be at MSG in New York, and Erin Blanchfield is from New York. So she's going to be fighting in front of her hometown. But who knows what the cheers are going to be like? Are they going to be for Molly McCann or are they going to be for Erin Blanchfield? Time will tell. But I got a feeling it's going to be for Molly McCann.
Yep.
Moving on to Andre Petroski and Wellington Turman. I think this one could be a decent fight. Both fighters like to grapple. Petroski, 3-fight win streak here. Michael Gilmore, nothing special. Ya Zhang Hu, nothing special. Nick Maximov just got cut. Wellington Turman win over Sam Malvey and Misha Serkinov. So both guys, not the greatest set of competition. Petroski's sitting at minus 210 right now, so over a 2-1 favorite. For initial lean, I think there's maybe some value here on Turman at plus 175. He has been training at Glover's place, the Pit, with Alex Bejeda and Glover, obviously. So he's getting some good training in. He's only 26, so kind of came into the UFC somewhat raw. I think he could be getting some skills put together. And Petroski's a very strong dude. Mm-hmm. So if he just goes in there and bullies Turman, then he's going to take this one. But Turman's got some good BJJ and has caught, he caught Misha Serkinov with the submission. And I got a feeling he might do it again. just based off how Petroski likes to fight. But what are you thinking?
Yeah, I don't see this fight being a real technical striking fight by any means. I
No,
mean, if
not
you
at
look
all.
at Petroski, he's got, I don't want to say this and offend anybody, but he's just your typical MMA wrestling fighter. He has that overhand. He'll hit hard when he lands, but he will look to wrestle and grapple. And I think his jiu-jitsu is more of that wrestling jiu-jitsu. It's, I'm going to take you down, scramble, get to your back, and then maybe I'll find a rear naked choke. Whereas Wellington's BJJ is more of the, hardcore Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I'm going to look for arm bars, triangle chokes. He can kind of submit you any type of way. I do like Petroski's power here, and I like his strength. But again, man, on the feet, I think it kind of washes out. I don't think either guy is technical on the feet enough to, dominate this fight. I think this thing will hit the mat. And when it does, I can't help but side with Turman either because, he's got that natural jiu-jitsu, whereas he's going to understand more of that than Petroski is, who's just going to look to take you down and kind of, control you, land some ground and pound. Maybe your neck's exposed and he'll look for it. Whereas Wellington, he has more in his arsenal as far as the jiu-jitsu goes. And I think he could catch him as well. And I definitely don't mind him here as the underdog. Plus 165 on the book I'm looking at right now. I think that'd be worth a sprinkle at least.
Yeah, I think it's kind of dog or pass in that situation as well. It's like, are you really going to back Petroski at a 2-1 favorite? Like, it's getting a little greasy there. But I'm gonna keep thinking about my pick.
Yeah, and if
there,
if you look at Petroski's his last win inside the UFC, Nick Maximov, who's been really underwhelming and really disappointing lately. So it's not like he's gone in there and fought anybody that's really good. Michael Gilmore, if you remember him, he got brought into the Ultimate Fighter and was just awful. I hate to say it, but he was just awful. And so he beat him in the third round by ground and pound. It took him a while to finish that fight. So I don't think Petroski is going to go in here and just dominate this guy. And I think that Wellington Turman, is super dangerous on the ground. So if he's going to be the underdog at plus 165, I'm probably going to take him.
Yeah, not bad value at all.
Nope.
We'll move on to what I think is kind of a sleeper on this card, mainly for the fact that Ottoman Azaitar hasn't fought in over 2 years. So people kind of forgotten this dude's powerful and he swings bombs, man. Matt Frevola, the steamroller, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to throw some bombs too. I think this one has potential to be the fight of the night if one of these guys can stay standing long enough for it to be a back and forth. But very, very intriguing fight here in the lightweight division. Basically a pick 'em. Undefeated for Azaitar. So his always on the line. What are you thinking in this one?
I'm going to pick against Frevola just because of that Tapology picture and the cowboy hat and the coat with no shirt on under it.
I would too. That is who does that, man? Like you're a fighter, not a rock star or something.
Yeah, no, but in reality, Frevola's last 2 losses, Terrence McKinney and Arman Sarukian, 2 guys that are climbing up the ranks and are really good fighters. He lost to Terrence McKinney. He took a left hand and then got finished by the ground and pound. 13-0 for Ottman, and like you said, he throws bombs. If Terrence McKinney can drop you with that left hand, that Ottman's got the power to do so as well. Frevola, his win, split decision win over Luis Pena. He did beat Jalen Turner by decision. I know that was, 2019, so 3 years ago. Jalen Turner was only 8-4 then. He didn't have as much UFC experience, but still went over Jalen Turner. And then his last fight, Genaro Valdez beat him by ground and pound. So Frevola's talented and he's strong too. For me in this fight, though, it's just I'm going to go with the more powerful striker in Ottman, a guy who can put you out with one punch. He's done it before. We just saw, a couple of years ago, Terrence McKinney do it to Frevola. So I'm going to put my money on Ottman doing it to him as well here. Yeah,
I don't necessarily have a lean as far as the fighters go, but I think I got in on the under 2.5.
Yeah,
minus 175. It's moved to minus 190 now. I think that's like the lock of the card for me. as far as that goes. I mean, maybe, Azaitar gasses out or something and Frevola can kind of grind on him for a couple rounds and I lose. But I just got a feeling with all the energy that's going to be in that arena, these guys are gonna throw down. And honestly, don't even hate the under 1.5 at minus 105. That's not bad at all.
Yeah.
It could be over really quick. Azaitar, I believe 2 first-round finishes in his 2 UFC fights. So, but also who knows what he's going to look like? He's been off for 2 years, so
Yep.
maybe
Yeah.
keep an eye on weigh-ins, see what he looks like, if he's in shape or if he looks any different. That's always a question mark. But I would probably lean Azaitar as well as far as my pick, but I'm probably not going to take anybody money line here, and more so just go for the violence.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I mean, the odds are, basically a pick 'em, plus 100, minus 120, and there's a lot of question marks with Ottman being off 2 years, like you said. So it's kind of hard to gauge, what each guy's going to go out there and look like. Especially both guys hold a lot of power. Like you said, I'm taking the violence. I think that's a pretty good play. And under 2.5 at minus 175, some decent value there because I definitely think it ends within 2 rounds. But at minus 175 might be a potential parlay piece there too that you can feel pretty confident in.
Yeah, definitely. Move on to what I think might be one of the another great spot on this card that I certainly like. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, I guess that's how I'll say it. 4 straight losses for her, and then the win in her last one out to Felice Herrig. 14-9, Felice Herrig. Silvana Gomez Juarez, the big win over Na Liang, the nasty KO there at UFC 275, I believe. And then lost to Vanessa Demopoulos in UFC 270, if I remember that correctly, and then a loss to Lupita Godinez. So both fighters 37 years old. Gomez Juarez, not nearly the amount of miles on her as Kowalkiewicz has been. Still very new to the UFC. She's only been in the UFC for a year. I think Silvana Gomez Juarez is a really good play this week as far as the betting odds. She's minus 105. I think she should be a heavier favorite here. She's got really good stand up. She's a very, very powerful girl.
Mm-hmm.
And this will be her 3rd pay-per-view of the year. So obviously the UFC thinks she has, some not necessarily star power, but like she puts on exciting fights and they want to showcase that. She dropped Vanessa Demopoulos in her fight there and then ultimately gets armbarred. So that's the thing. She doesn't have a great ground game at all, but she has really good boxing and just murked the absolute shit out of Na Liang in that.
Yeah.
I think if this fight stays standing, she wins on volume. She wins on power. She could knock her out. Kowalkiewicz, or I'll just call her Karolina. Karolina hasn't really shown that she wants to, push for a takedown or anything. She has always been a stand-up fighter. Did get the submission in her last fight out to Felice Herrig, but Felice Herrig was like, she was out the door before that fight even happened. So I don't want to put too much stock into that one. So I think Silvana Gomez Juarez is great play. I also think the under 2.5 in that one at plus 110 is also a great play. Gomez Juarez is kind of a game fighter. All 3 of her UFC fights have not gone the distance. She got armbarred twice and then the knockout. So either way, if she gets submitted or she finds a knockout, you're covered there at plus money, plus 110. I think that's a great play as well. But I do think Gomez Juarez gets the knockout in this one. And I'm going to take it for my pick. I think she's one of the best plays on the card.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I like that, on the feet, I think she's going to have the advantage over Karolina. If you look at Carolina's losses, it's been basically to all killers. Jessica Andrade, Michelle Waterson, Alexa Grasso, Yao Shannon, and Jessica Panay. But if you notice, a lot of these girls have some stuff in common. And Jessica Andrade, good striker. Michelle Waterson, good striker. Grasso, good striker. Shannon's good striker. So that seems to be her downfall is when girls can keep it on the feet with her. They seem to end up picking her apart. And Silvana Gomez has some power on the feet, and she's going to be obviously the better boxer here. I do like her, especially, this close to pick 'em. There's obviously value on either side of the coin here you go with either girl, but if the odds are going to stay this close, I'm definitely going to take Silvana Gomez Juarez, just for that stand-up factor. I think she's got a great chance to win Saturday. I don't know if I'm as confident as you are in this fight, but that's definitely the side I'm leaning on.
Yeah. It's always a kind of a red flag when you're confident in a women's MMA pick. But in this one, I don't know. I got a good feeling about it. But sometimes your feelings are wrong. So it's not betting advice, but just more so giving what I got in my mind. So yeah, Mike Trizano, Song Woo Choi. This one I can't really get a good read on either. I mean, I was on Song Woo Choi in the last fight against Kulabao. He looked absolutely terrible. I wasn't on Trizano his last fight, but he didn't look good either against Lucas Almeida. Both fighters 30 years old. Choi sitting at the favorite at minus 155 right now. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, it's tough to gauge. Trizano, I'm looking at Woo Choi's record. He's got the loss to Joshua Kulabayo and Alex Caceres. Alex Caceres, he's 18-12. He's lost to a lot of guys inside the UFC, and he went in there and got the submission over him. And then his wins against Yusuf Salal, Julian Erosa. I remember people talking about how he was going to be a decent prospect when he came into the UFC. He took 2 losses right off the bat. Mazvar Evilov, who's a beast, and Gavin Tucker. But then he went on that 3-fight win streak. But lately, he's just looked, like you said, in his last fight, he's looked bad. Alex Caceres was able to go in there, get the back, and submit him. Trizano's a tough dude. He did lose to Lucas Almeida in that last fight. Almeida was just coming into the UFC, I believe, and he caught him later in the fight with a left hook. And then lost to Hakeem Dawodu, who's a good fighter. So I don't think we've necessarily seen the potential of Trizano inside the UFC yet. Just based off of how Choi looked in his last fight, I'm going to have to lean Trizano here. I think we're going to see a version of Trizano that we haven't seen yet. I think he's young enough to where he's going to be improving every time he steps in there. He's taken 2 losses. I think he's going to learn from it. Like I said, he's young enough in his career to walk away from losses and take a lot away from them and get better as he goes. Kind of a fight that I'm a little weary of putting money anywhere. But gun to my head, if I had to, I'm taking the underdog and Mike Trizano.
Yeah, I would also lean that way. I would just say dog or pass. But also, Mike Trizano from New Jersey is going to be fighting in his home region. I think that's enough for me to take him for my pick. Maybe a little sprinkle on him as a dog, but yeah, we'll figure that out later in the week, see how they look, and make that decision ultimately. But I'll take Trizano for my pick. I don't necessarily want to get too invested in this one, but Trizano's he doesn't do anything necessarily super impressively. Same with Choi. Like Choi is more of a stand-up fighter, but in his last fight, he didn't look good at all in the stand-up. So it's tough to back that. I also think Lucas Almeida is much better than people give him credit. Well, I think he's going to be good. He's 13-1, so who knows? But Hakeem Dawodu is also a really good kickboxer. Didn't look good in his last performance, but still think he's solid in the UFC. But
if I remember right, he was winning that fight against Lucas Almeida too in the first couple of rounds. And then in round 3, 55 seconds, he takes the left hand and the fight was over. So it's not like he's going and getting blown out of the water. No. So yeah, I don't know. I like the underdog here. There's actually a lot of underdogs on this card that I'm siding with.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. But move on to Montel Jackson and Julio Arce. Arce coming off the win to Daniel Santos, who looked like a spitting image of Charles Oliveira in his last fight. But and then the loss to Song Yadong, training out of New Jersey as well. Got to keep that in mind. Montel Jackson, the return of Montel Jackson. It's been off for over a year. training out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This guy, I don't want to say like too much hype around him, but he's got some promise, and he's shown a lot of good stuff in the UFC. Sitting at minus 205 right now, so a 2-1 favorite. I'm a little weary because Arce he's pretty good everywhere, and he's not. I don't want to say he's like Mike Trizano, but he's good at everything, not necessarily good at anything to an elite level. In his last fight, he just looked really sharp on the feet and kind of minded his P's and Q's against an explosive athlete like Daniel Santos and got the win there. Montel Jackson's kind of the same. He will mix in the wrestling a lot more than Santos will. So if I look at who Arce has fought, Willie Cat, not a wrestler. Song Yudong, not a wrestler. Andre Ewell, not a wrestler. Keem Dawadu, not a wrestler. Julian Erosa, not a wrestler. Montel Jackson, I believe, will definitely try to push the grappling in this one. So as far as Arce's takedown defense, I don't really know that's been tested. I don't know what it's going to look like. So I'm going to lean for Montel Jackson for my pick. I don't know if I'll be getting invested in it, though, just based off of the unknowns in this fight. What are you thinking?
Yeah, if you look at Arce, he's beaten Dan Ige, which is impressive. That was 4 years ago, but Julio Arce on the feet is super technical. He's a southpaw. Against Daniel Santos, looked really good at times. Was able to, land the shots he wanted. Did get hit a little bit. I mean, he does get hit. And if you look at Montel Jackson in his last fight, he was finding the target against JP Bays, and I can't remember how many times he knocked him down throughout the fight. It was 3 or 4 where he clipped him and dropped him. So he's got a lot of power in his hands, super athletic, and he does wrestle pretty well, and he will look to wrestle in this fight. And then I like that Montel Jackson is 3 inches taller, and he's got a 5.5-inch reach advantage over Julio Arce as well. I think on the feet, it might be kind of even. Julio Arce is pretty technical. Montel Jackson's pretty powerful, and he's pretty technical himself. But I think that wrestling is going to be the one factor that puts Montel Jackson at more of an advantage to win this fight over Arce. I do like Jackson by knockout a little bit. I can't wait to see what the odds are on that. I don't know if you have them there, but just looking at the strikes he hit with JP Bays with, It was almost effortless, and he was finding the chin. It didn't even look like he was throwing it at full power, and he was putting him down easily and multiple times. Julio Arce, good striker, but he does get hit a little bit. I'm interested to see what that line is going to be, but overall, I think Montel Jackson wins either way.
Yeah, I got Montel Jackson by KO is at plus 330 for what I'm looking at right now. That's pretty solid.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't hate that at all. Definitely could spark him and at any point, and could ground and pound him. He's definitely got the skills to do that on the ground as well. So not a bad lead there. Not a bad lead. Move on to the first fight of the night. I think this is a really good way to start off. Instead of Akira Hosa and whoever she just fought. This is a little bit better. Carlos Ulberg, 6-1 in his pro MMA career. Very good kickboxer as well. Training out of City Kickboxing. Going to get started off for Team City Kickboxing. See how he does for that. Negumereanu, 4 straight wins. Coming off came off the Contender Series, I believe, a while ago or something, and then kind of a split decision win there with Nzechukwu, kind of a weird one there, and everything, and then the KO win to Ihor Potieria. But I've always been a believer in Carlos Ulberg. I think he's just getting used to MMA striking and everything, and in his fight with Nzechukwu, he got knocked out in the second round, I believe. That was a year and 7 months ago, but since then he's looked pretty good. A win over Fabio Charant, and then a win over Tafon Chukwe, KO in the first round. He's 6'4". I mean, he's very rangy. He's very precise with his strikes. In that fight that he got knocked out in, I think he kind of just burned himself out in that first round. Almost got the finish, and then kind of waned away as the fight went on, and then Zechiku took over and knocked him out. At this price, I think this is a solid price. Minus 120. That's, you don't ask for a ton of almost pick'em fights, and in this one, you're getting a damn near a pick'em, and I feel good about Carlos Ulberg in this one. I don't know that he does it inside the distance, though. I mean, Negumereanu is pretty durable. I've seen him take a bunch of shots. In that fight with Nzechiku, he kind of just got his face jab, 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 jab. And Nzechiku is very powerful. Took all those shots. I think he's really durable. I don't know that he does it inside the distance for Ulberg. But I wouldn't be surprised if he does. He's very capable, but I'm going to go with Ulberg in this one for my pick, and I got to play in him on the money line as well.
Yeah, I like Ulberg here too. It's one of those city kickboxing cards. Those guys seem to come even more fired up when they're all fighting together on the same card. A lot of good energy around that camp. But, Nick in his last fight fought Ior Poirier, and Poirier was coming into the UFC, making his debut. Everybody was super high on him, and Nick was the underdog, and he went in there and just proved to be too much. It was way too soon for Ior to go in there and fight a guy like him. I think the key for Carlos Ulberg here is to survive that first-round onslaught, because Nick likes to march forward and try to put it on you with some pace, with some pressure. He likes to brawl coming forward, and Ulberg's more of that, like you said, he's got the precision. He's a good striker. He can fight from range. So it's kind of two strikers, but different styles of strikers that are going to clash on Saturday. But what I see happening, I'm just crystal ball here. I think Nick rushes in to try to, hit Carlos with a flurry, and Carlos is going to catch him with a counter, or Nick's going to, be brawling too much that he leaves his chin open, and Carlos Ulberg finds that chin. First round KO is going to be my boldest prediction of this whole entire card. I'm going Carlos Ulberg all the way, but I'm going to take him and sprinkle it on the first round KO.
I'd be down for that. I think, to go to your point, I think Negumereanu is going to want to march him down and go after him. Carlos Ulberg's, he's got to utilize the teep kicks, the front kicks, trying to keep him off of him, and just kind of frustrate him to where he just, Nicolay can't touch him. So,
right.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. If that happens, then I'll take it. But I got
surprised that the total rounds right now is minus 150 for over 1.5. Two powerful dudes like this, two big boys. I'm surprised it's not a little closer to even, honestly. Under 1.5 plus 120 right now.
Yeah, that is true.
But I don't know if I am going to take the first round KO for Carlos Ulberg just for fun and just because I can see a scenario where that happens. I'm not confident in that by any means. So I'm not going to take the one under 1.5 either. I don't think. It's just pretty interesting to me.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. Technicality-wise, skill-wise, precision, I think Carlos Ulberg checks all of those categories. For that reason, man, minus 130, I'm in on him. I like him a lot. I think he's got a bright future in the UFC too. If he wins Saturday, I think he's got a good look in the UFC.
No blood diamond on this card, though, unfortunately. But
yeah.
So we got 14 fights from the top down. I got Alex Pereira, Zhang Weili, Dustin Poirier, Chris Gutierrez, Claudio Puelles, Brad Riddell. I'm going to go with Ryan Spann as the dog. Aaron Blanchfield. I'm going to go with Wellington Turman. I'll take him there. Ottoman Azaitar, Silvana Gomez Juarez, Mike Trizano, Montel Jackson, and Carlos Ulberg.
I think we're going to have a lot of the same besides. It's another main event that we disagree on. I know you took Charles and I took Islam. But I've got to go Izzy just for the fact that no one's been able to beat him at middleweight. Definitely taking Weili Zhang, Dustin Poirier, Chris Gutierrez. I'm taking Claudio Puelles, Brad Riddell, Ryan Spann. I'm going to take a shot on Meatball Molly here just because of the experience factor and the striking. I think she's got a chance to win by KO. at those odds, I'm just going to take her. She's going to be my pick as well, though. Wellington Turman, I think, has got more weapons. Ottoman, I'm taking. I like that 13-0 record, and I like his power. I am going to take Silvana Gomez Juarez. I like the striking. I'm taking Mike Trizano. I'm taking Montel Jackson, and I am also on Carlos Ulberg.
All right. We are in for some treats there. For my current bets right now, I got Alex Pereira money line, Dustin Poirier money line, Carlos Ulberg money line, Gomez Juarez money line, Poirier by KO, under 2.5 rounds, Azaitar and Frevola fight, under 2.5 rounds, Carolina and Silvana Gomez Juarez fight. Gomez Juarez by KO. And then I got 2 parlays, one with Poirier and Weili, and one with Gutierrez and Weili.
I really like the Poirier Weili parlay. From my bets right now, under 4.5 between Izzy and Alex Pereira. I just think those 2 strikers, if we don't get a boring fight, we're going to get, a lot of big exchanges with somebody getting clipped a time or two. I like the under 4.5. Ryan Spann to end this by submission or knockout. I'm going to sprinkle 0.25 units on Molly McCann by knockout, because if she wins, that's got to be the way it goes.
Yeah.
My other prop, Wellington Turman by submission. I just think in that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he's just going to be a level above Petroski, and I think this fight will go to the ground. So I think there's a good chance we'll see scenarios where Wellington Turman will have an opportunity to find a sub. I am going to go Montel Jackson by knockout, and then Carlos Ulberg, of course. I just said it a few minutes ago. A first-round KO for my play of the night, my Hail Mary, 0.25 units. I'm going to guess that thing will pay pretty well if it hits.
I bet it will. And I'm going to be rooting for it as well. As always, at HI Picks on all media, I will put out my full betting card. Might do it earlier than an hour or two before the fights start this week. But on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at HI Picks, where can they find you?
On Instagram at the parlay_media, TikTok at the parlay, and on YouTube, the parlay MMA.
And as always, at the double leg on TikTok and Instagram. If you're watching this on YouTube, please leave a subscription, a like, and a comment. Let us know what you guys are on for this week. We are in for a treat, and hopefully that main event lives up to the hype. But I got a feeling all the fights below it will, and will make for a great lead up to the big main event. As always, HI Picks, the parlay, the double leg. We are out until the next video.